fallout, smoke, women crying for their sons because their sons are not, Romans killing riotous groups that are rising up. Free Judea, free our people, autonomy for Israel. You had Herod, an Edomite, and his dynasty. Herod's ruling, killing any potential threat, any potential Messiah. Then you had the Pharisees and the Sadducees, that we learn from Josephus are not Jews by birth. No.
Brothers and sisters, they are there. We are not lost. We are scattered. We are original Hebrew.
Let's go! All praises be to the Most High God. Yeah, I say it.
I was opportune to meet my grandparents, whom from childhood had always made us to understand that we are one of the lost tribes of Israel. Okay. So from my grandmother.
Right. Now look at these. Yeah, I'm telling you, I gotta show y'all. A picture speaks 1,000 words. Just look for yourself. And this is the creme de la creme. All praises be to the Most High, y'all. Everything we've been through, y'all, the Most High is going to retribute it on all the nations that have had a hand in the oppression of his apple, the apple of his eye, his chosen people, his beloved, his fervent lover, his only begotten. They're going to have their part in the lake of fire. You see them tormented by some kind of creature. I don't even know what that even is, y'all. Judgment in chains. He that led into captivity shall go into captivity. All praise to the Most High, y'all. What's up, Zion Dynasty? This is your favorite dreaded Israelite, the man, the myth, and the legend, Mr. JB Zion. Man, y'all show me some love, and welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to Zion Dynasty, where your boy is back and the fringed of flesh. I'm about to hit y'all with another banger. All glory, honor, dominion, power, majesty, world without end, to the mighty one of Yaakov, the holy one of Yasharal, the redeemer of Israel, the resurrector of the dry bones of Zion, the holy one of our people, the God of our power, our Father, the Most High, Yahweh Bahashim, Yahweh Shai. All glory, honor, and praise to the Most High Yah. And y'all, welcome back to the channel. First, I gotta say peace, love, blessings, and Israelite power to the gods of this earth. My Israelite brothers and sisters, the kings and queens of Zion, the daughter of his dispersed, the royalty of this planet. Yoruba and Ephraim of the tribe of Joseph. I want to say peace, love, blessing to each and every one of y'all, all my Israelite family. I do this for y'all. This work would be nothing without y'all's love, y'all's edification, y'all's prophecies, y'all's donations, y'all just encouragement. I love y'all. My family loves y'all. We could not do these teachings, these lessons without y'all. Peace and blessings. I speak prosperity. I speak peace. I speak boldness. I speak the spirit of the Lion of Zion. Those that's fighting for this history. Those that ain't gonna let the nations have the last say so. Those that are not gonna let the naysayers and the doubters get us to doubt our history, to doubt our heritage, to question the Father's love for the apple of his eye, his only begotten. Y'all gotta hear what I'm saying, but not just y'all. I gotta say peace, love, blessings, and Israelite power to the sojourners of Zion. All those Israelite supporters, all those Gentiles that's rocking with this movement, that believe in this awakening, that believe in the Father and truly have the love of the Father to support his children. Not all of them ones that's lost in the sauce play it. All of those Gentiles not lost in the goon squad sauce madness.
Let's see what the Israelite talking about. Well, Israel don't worry, whosoever will, let him come.
Hey, y'all Israel now. Oh, y'all black folks, so y'all Jews, we was kings. Oh, y'all think y'all is Jews now, you Jewish?
And legalism and, these Israelites trying to turn us back to the law of Moses. And neither Jew nor Greek, world without end, that don't matter. Just talking about whosoever will call upon the name of Christ will be saved. For God so loved the world. Well, JB, we ain't saying he didn't came, we just saying he was rainbow. He came for all colors. Don't nobody really know what he
They saying, well, you can't use Deuteronomy 28.
Even though it says we're gonna go into a country as swift as the eagle flies.
Oh no, you can't use that.
Even though it says we're gonna have a yoke of iron around our neck, you can't use that. That's been fulfilled. Even though it says you're gonna go into slavery again on slave cargo ships, oh, that's already been fulfilled. And I'm like, Negro, let's go. But all those, I could not thank y'all enough, because there are a lot of Gentiles that support this work, that know who Yahusha is, that know that Yahusha is a black man with woolly hair according to the scriptures, and that they're not deterred by how the Father chose to send his son. They believe in the historicity of the text, and not just that, but they support the perpetual nature of Zion, and that is the children of Israel, and our right to be here, our right to rule and lead this earth in Torah and in our culture to show forth the image of the invisible God to all the nations. So y'all, welcome to the channel. Y'all already know what to do. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Please subscribe. If you have not subscribed, y'all subscribe. Also, this video, y'all, your boy is about to go in. Y'all, I'm getting hyped, I'm getting pumped, because it's a lot of history, y'all, that we're about to go through on this video, on this lesson. I'm gonna give you guys the tools that you guys need. Y'all take notes. If you need any links to any of the research, any of these books that I'm about to show y'all, we're about to go through Harvard. Y'all about to hear. Y'all get yourself ready, get yourself a snack, do what you got to do, get yourself a beverage, get a pen and paper. We are about to go through the history of our people, the history of the African tribes, the Yoruba, the Igbo, the Limba, the Ashanti, the Beta Israel, the Maghrebian, Moroccan, North African, Sephardim, the West African Israelites, that migration from Israel in 70 AD at the fall of the temple, the EP2 Natufian Harvard study that traced our DNA to the land of Israel in ancient Israelite times. Y'all, we're about to go through this thing heavy, and I'm about to present a lot of books and scholarship, and I'm about to go into the White House memorandum, the Library of Congress. I'm about to what Satan thought. Y'all, I'm trying to tell y'all, the nations thought their history was dead. They thought our identity was hid. They thought they secured the bag, but the Most High said, I'll take the dirt of the ground and resurrect a nation. Yes! That truth, y'all gotta understand, truth will always speak over the lie. See, even Willie Lynch said that my program, Rome would envy us, right? Our forefathers would envy our tactics at destroying these Negroes. But please understand, plantation owners, this is what Willie Lynch told them. He said, plantation owners, understand that truth has an amazing way. Y'all gotta hear what I'm saying. Truth has an amazing way of resuscitating itself in time. Even if they thought they hit every book, all the DNA, and that's why I do these lessons, y'all. And y'all download these links, print out these studies, buy these books, get this history for yourself. Don't let it just be JB's word, because the nations seek to hide this information, but what they don't know is that they're fighting against creation itself. They're fighting against the Most High Yah himself. And truth, love will always overcome. There is not no Christian doctrine or dogma that can do away with the love that the Father has for his children. And this is testament. All of this research that we're about to go through. So y'all like, comment, share this to anybody you know that might not be convinced that historically so-called blacks descend from the African Americans taken in the transatlantic slave period, and those African Americans that were brought to the Americas, the African tribes that they were taken from, there were specific tribes that were targeted during the 1619 transatlantic. This was not a roll of the dice. This was a specific refugee people in Africa that they knew were wandering in the continent and took them as slaves. This was a specific region of Africa, so-called sub-Saharan Africa, below the Sahara Desert. When you get into West Africa, South Africa, these specific tribes were targeted. When you talk about the Yoruba of Nigeria, the Igbo of Nigeria, when you talk about Cameroon, Ghana, specific regions, South Africa, the Limba tribe, these specific African tribes were targeted. And that's important because when we're researching our identity, you're gonna run into these tribes. And if you dig deep, family, that's what we finna do, you will see that it is well documented when you search the origin of these tribes. So first you search the origin of who are we? Who's the so-called black? You're gonna get to the transatlantic, right? when you do your DNA, it's going to put you back in Africa, specifically West Africa or Sub-Saharan Africa. If you go deeper, because that's just a territory of the continent, if you go deeper, it's going to put you in countries like Nigeria, Cameroon, Ghana, Congo region, Niger, Congo people. And if you dig into those tribes, you will see that they are well documented. I mean, scholar after scholar, when you get into the origin of these people, traces them back to ancient Israel. That's the key, family. You might see a term like Netufia or something like that. Don't get thrown off. If you Google Netufia, it's ancient Palestine or ancient Canaan when the Israelites dwelt there before the 1948 people. I repeat, our DNA links back to the ancient Israelites that originally inhabited that land before the Ashkenazi, the 1948, and that whole event took place. So y'all, we about to go through it. I'm about to jump right into it. And first I'm gonna show y'all some literature. Then I'm gonna go in deep into the DNA. I'm gonna deal with CTS, EL485, EP2 or EP252, all of that, family. I'm about to go into a lot of the DNA that you're gonna run across if you do your 23andMe and that kind of thing. So family, first I gotta let y'all know. Oh yeah, first, if y'all want to support this work, I'm gonna put that Cash App, that PO box up. You guys, y'all donations encourage us. Let us know that you guys are feeling the lesson and that you're learning from it and that you're supporting it and that kind of thing. I'm gonna put that up if you guys want to support. So family, we're about to go into this thing. And first I gotta let y'all know that none of this DNA or these Harvard sources, the Oxford, the Cambridge, all of this I'm finna show y'all does not replace the foundation of the word of the Most High Yah. Now, we know that the Roman Catholic Church, that end-time deception, that leaven doctrine of white Jesus and Christmas trees and all of that we've been doing videos on, all of that was a well-engineered machine. We understand that. And we understand that the Bible, they sought to alter, take books out, remove stuff like the Apocrypha. If y'all don't have an Apocrypha, they're only about $5 on Amazon, like a Cambridge Apocrypha. This is a Cambridge edition. But a lot of these books were originally inside of the 1611 King James. A lot of them were removed. They give spurious reasons of, well, this was too much history. This doesn't fit the overall narrative of the scriptures and all these bogus excuses, because a lot of like the books of Maccabees and that kind of thing go through crucial history of Israel being Hellenized, mixed in. So we understand that the Roman Catholic Church altered a lot of the scriptures. They moved books out, they pushed the narrative, but the power of the Most High Yah, y'all hear what I'm saying? The Most High was able to take 1,000+ prophecy in Deuteronomy 28, even with the English translation, even with the nations altering and changing words, they couldn't change that. Or they couldn't change it in time for our people to find this stuff out. Now, you got a lot of new translations today that's post-King James, post-NKJV that seek to alter things like Song of Solomon 1:5, I am black but beautiful. But the faithfulness of the Most High to use that book to prove we're Israel is our foundation ahead of all this other research I'm about to show y'all. So I just wanted to say that first. So now, family, we're about to go into it. So I'm gonna show y'all some of the literature that we're gonna go into. The Black Jews of Africa and the Americas by Professor Tudor Parfit, family. We're gonna deal with this in detail. I'm gonna try to show you guys the Harvard forward that's on the back. So as you guys can see, there is a Harvard forward by a Harvard professor that's endorsing this work. It's amazing, family, how a lot of these Ivy League institutions know our history and it is well documented. Professor Tudor Parfit is a part of a team of researchers in an organization by the name of Colonial who investigate, search out the diaspora of the Jewish people. I say Jewish in quotes. We're talking about Israelite people. And they deal extensively with the African Jewry. They deal with a lot of these tribes we're going to talk about, the Igbo, the Yoruba. So you guys, this is credibility. It's Harvard University Press, Professor Emeritus, Dr. Tudor Parfit, and his work, which is extensive. I mean, he's well vouched for in terms of going into the diaspora of the Israelite people. So we're going to refer to his work from time to time. Also, one of his colleagues, Dr. Edith Bruder, in her work, Black Jews of Africa, she also, this is an Oxford Ivy League publication. We're going to go into that. I know I mentioned these different books in brief, but we're going to go deep into this history. So y'all, this is going to be a lesson. This is going to be a history study connecting the prophecies of the scripture to us being that people and the descendants of Israel. So y'all, that's Oxford, Dr. Edith Bruder. Not just that, but Dr. Edith Bruder and Professor Tudor Parfit, they had a collaboration, African Zion, where they went into detail again. They have so many publications because there is so much evidence of the customs that the African tribes that we come from, their customs, the 8th-day naming ceremony. They don't eat pork, the fringed garments, they're keeping Shabbat, they're keeping Passover, they're even making sacrifice in some of these tribes, right? So there's so much evidence of these tribes keeping Judeo customs that there's countless articles of research and scholarship on the topic. I'm just throwing this stuff out for you guys. Also, Derek Lang, I'm gonna put his anthropological work up that talks about the origin of the Yoruba and the lost tribes of Israel. Majority of African Americans, most of y'all that message me, you're connected to the Yoruba people. Most of y'all are EP250 or P252, EL485, E1B1A, E1B1A 7A, E1B1A, and I'm gonna explain that paternal nomenclature so you guys can understand what does that mean with all that science. Well, I'm gonna break that down so you guys can understand. But basically, what it's saying is when you do a paternal test, it is testing your father's lineage. You can do this through 23andMe. You can do this through ancestry.com. Any of these DNA companies will have a patriclan or a paternal test that takes your father's lineage all the way back to country of origin, right? So what they tell our people is that we're African. So there is an African paternal group that if you trace your father's father, if they go back to the transatlantic, that is, if your forefathers were on slave cargo ships, you're gonna run into E1B1A. That DNA group basically says that you descend from Africans that were on the slave ships that came to America. Why is this important? The Bible is heavy on the paternal lineage, establishing the identity of an Israelite, i.e. you are who your father is. I know a lot of y'all try to argue that point. I am not encouraging Israel to marry the other nations. I'm gonna put a picture up of my lovely Israelite queen and kids to let y'all know, look at your boy's action. I do not endorse that nonsense. Some people try to label a lot of folks Israel that really ain't, just so they can be able to do some other stuff. But I'm not gonna get into that. I'm not gonna start bashing that kind of stuff. But my point of bringing this up is if you take a watermelon seed and you sow it in any soil, the tree or the vine or the fruit that's gonna come up is based on the seed. I know that might not be the best way to explain it. If you take apple seeds and you plant it in California or in Alabama, it's gonna bring apple trees that's gonna have apples, right? So the father's seed is what is used biblically to establish lineage. This is why, from a scientific standpoint, if you want to trace your lineage, you can use E1B1A, which is basically saying your father's goes back to the transatlantic to verify you descend from the cursed people or the curses of Deuteronomy 28, which proves that you're an Israelite. Now then you can go further into those African tribes and that kind of thing, but that's just a working knowledge of DNA. Now the counterpart of E1B1A, which is your father going back to Israel or your father going back to the African tribes brought to the Americas, is the maternal lineage. The maternal haplogroups that also are Israelite queens include L0, L1, L2, and L3. Notice there are 4 of them. Jacob had 4 wives through which the 12 sons of Jacob, i.e. Israelite, the 12 tribes of Israel, which are based off the 12 sons of Jacob, he had those 12 sons through 4 women. So there are 4 maternal groups. That means your mother's lineage goes back to the West African or Sub-Saharan people that we were taken from during the transatlantic. I hope y'all stay with me. So you got E1B1A, which is tracing your father back to the Israelite African tribes, and you have L0, 1, 2, and 3 that go back to the Israelite queen, the mother's lineage going back to the African Israelite tribes. So that's just a working knowledge. Now, in Derek Lang's work on the origin of the Yoruba and the lost tribes of Israel, he goes into the Yoruba people being linked to Israel. Now, there's a lot of information on the Yoruba, the Igbo, the Ashanti. We're going to go through those African tribes. Also, in his UNESCO work, Ancient Kingdoms of West Africa, this is a UNESCO work. When I say UNESCO, this is the United Nations Online Library. So this is all credibility. Everything that I'm giving y'all is well verified. So if some Caucasian person or urban apologist says, oh, there's no credible information that proves that y'all Israel. Y'all, there are so many books that this video would be like 1,000,000 hours worth of research, y'all. So I'm not gonna be able to cover everything, but there's so much, y'all. I'm gonna give y'all a lot of UNESCO, United Nations, Harvard, Oxford, Cambridge, and a lot of that DNA we're gonna go into. So also, family, the Jewish Encyclopedia of the Diaspora, or the Encyclopedia of the Jewish Diaspora, goes also, just like Colonial, where Professor Tudor Parfit goes into the migration of the Israelites into Africa. This Diaspora Encyclopedia also talks about, I'm gonna show that clip, a lot of the Israelites going into West Africa, becoming the Nigerian people, the Igbo, the Yoruba, and a lot of those West African tribes are accounted for as descendants of the Israelite diaspora. Diaspora means the scattering of Yah's people. So we're gonna talk about that, family. Also, a Zondervan, if y'all don't have that, the Zondervan Compact Bible Dictionary. A lot of y'all been asking me about this science, a lot of this DNA, about this literature. Y'all, these books I'm showing y'all, if you can afford it, if you can get these books, but your boy's gonna go through them on every video, basically, just to explain this information if you can't. But a lot of y'all are teachers and like to teach this information, and I'm gonna equip y'all with the tools that you need. The Zondervan is where you might hear Israelites say that we're not Ham, we're not the sons of Ham, in that Bible dictionary. Now, the Zondervan is one of the leading companies for Bible versions and also dictionaries and encyclopedias. Now, in the Zondervan Bible Compact Dictionary, under Ham, it says Ham is the father of the dark races, not the Negroes. So that means that Zondervan and his company know that we're a dark race of people, but we are not Hamites, right? We descend from Shem. The Israelites who descend from Shem look just like the Hamites. Hamites such as the Egyptians, the Ethiopians, and a lot of these African tribes, right? Our people look just like any other Hamitic group. That's how Moses was raised in Pharaoh's house. Joseph couldn't be recognized by his brothers. Christ went into Egypt to hide, and Paul was mistaken as an Egyptian way in the New Testament. Our people look just like any other dark race Hamitic people. The Zondervan verifies this Bible history. Not just that, but if you look up the word ruddy, it says that it's a fairer complexion in contrast to the dark skin of the Hebrews. I'm just throwing this stuff out. We finna deal with this stuff, y'all. So now, family, I just gave y'all a touch. We're about to go deeper into the Harvard studies. I'm gonna do the White House memorandum, the Library of Congress, and go deeper into the DNA to show you all the evidence for the Black Jews of Africa and that our people descend from African tribes, that their oral tradition goes back to them migrating from the so-called Middle East deeper into Africa. Before I do that, I'm gonna show y'all a clip because the Middle East is actually Northeast Africa. I'm gonna show y'all that clip to let you know the Middle East is also a part of the greater continent of Africa. Let's check that out.
We consider Israel to be Northeast Africa. We are living here in the southern portion of Israel in what is known as the Southern Judean Mountains. And of course, we have to make this clear that Israel predates any Palestinian connections here to this land. When you look at the name of Palestine, it was the name that the Romans gave to the land formerly known as Judea. Now, I didn't say Jewish or Judaism, but Judea. So the Judeans were the people that actually lived in this portion of this land prior to it being named Palestine by the Romans. So this is what we consider to be Northeast Africa. We are sitting on the African tectonic plate. There are African species of birds and animals and and plants that you'll find all throughout this region.
Why I took you here is that I want to show you that the country called Israel is sitting on the African tectonic plate. Now, we're going to go over here, and I'm going to show you where Israel sits on the African tectonic plate, which means that Israel is northeast Africa. Now, when we look at this map, this is the Sinai. Okay, this is the Red Sea. This is Egypt. This is the Sinai. This is Israel. All right, this is Saudi Arabia over here. Now, if you see this in Hebrew, it says Haluak Afrikani, the African plate. Here it is right here. Israel is sitting right here. Israel is sitting on the Haluak Afrikani, which means that Israel is northeast Africa.
In your book, Babylon the Timbuktu, that's one of the favorite books. I want you to go into, because you go into a lot of history regarding Israel along the west coast of Africa. Talk to us about that. Let me ask you this, because there's two trains of thought that I've heard people say. Some people have made the claim that some Israelites still are on the west coast. Some Israelites say they're all gone out of there. So what do you think the validity is? You think that there's still some there?
And there in Nigeria, there are the Igbos. The Igbos in Hebrew. And you know, evidently you know French then, right?
Yeah, I understand what that was.
In fact, the word Ebo, I don't know if you heard this, but Ebo, that's the way you say Hebrew. The way you say it in French.
Oh, okay.
You say Ebo. It means Hebrew.
Okay.
You see? So, a lot of, Israelites in southern Nigeria and in the country next door used to be called Dahomey.
Right, I've read about Dahomey.
Yeah, but now called Benin.
Benin.
In fact, that word Benin is a corruption or contraction from the Hebrew word Benaim Ephraim, which means the children of Ephraim.
Now that's in your book.
Yes.
I came across it. I was like, wow.
Yeah, you remember that.
That's right.
That's good. Yeah.
All praises be to the Most High Yah. I be trying to tell y'all. So y'all, I got a lot to cover. Let's keep going. So now, if you guys are wondering, JB, what is some basic books to get to kind of study on the African tribes that are actually Israelites in origin? Some great starter tools. I'm gonna give y'all those. The Negro question. Now, the Negro question, y'all, is profound. It's a lot in that for just starters. It's an easy read, maybe about 100 or so pages, if that. But I read this in like a day, y'all, because it's engaging. It's a lot of interesting history in it. Now, in this book, I'm gonna give you a summary. The author goes through the Zondervan definition, like I told you guys, that we are dark-raced people, but we are not Hamites. We are not Egyptians. We are Shemitic people, right? Noah only had 3 sons, Ham, Shem, and Japheth. Through those 3 sons is how everybody came into the earth. Japheth is the European people, Shem is the Oriental Israelite people, and Ham is the dark Hamitic African people. Now, if we don't come from Ham and Japheth is the Europeans, we know Shem is the only one left, but we're the Israelites, so we already knew that. He talks about that. Not just that, he goes through, and me look at my notes, he goes through a great deal of African territories that the Israelites migrated into. Alexandria, Carthage, Cyrene. We see in Acts chapter 2 that Peter talks about all of these diverse Jews that were from every nation under heaven. He names a lot of the African, or the book of Acts writer names a lot of these African territories that Israelites have been scattered to. So he talks about that, family. He talks about the Igbo. Their oral tradition is that they come from Gad's 8th son, Eri, right? And that Eri and his people, Oduduwa of the Yoruba people, migrated from Israel into deeper Africa during the fall of the Assyrian captivity. Now, y'all, that's when the Assyrians took the 10 tribes. So during the fall of the Assyrians, a lot of those Israelite refugees migrated into Africa and founded the sub-Saharan people groups, such as the Igbo and the Nigerian people, the Yoruba people. This is documented with the first autobiography of a black person in history. Olaudah Equiano talks about the customs of his people going back to the Jews. He says, man, the Jews do circumcision and all these different things. Wait, that's our culture, right? He recognizes the stark comparison of what the Jewish people claim. He says, our people been doing this stuff, right? Now it gets deep with that, because when you look at circumcision, the highest rate of circumcision in the world is in Nigeria. Google it. Y'all will be amazed. Like, what? That's the truth. Our people have been keeping these customs and keep them to this day. I bring that up to let you guys know that in a lot of these books, like the Negro question, he goes into the customs of the people. He also talks about the Ashanti tribe. The Ashanti tribe, which used to be a part of Ghana, or that whole Gogdambe people. The Ashanti people, specifically the high chieftain or the high priest, wears an ephod on his neck, a Levitical breastplate, and I'm gonna show y'all that has the 12 stones, just like the high priest during the time of the Levitical priesthood. They used to wear that ephod that symbolized how on the heart of the Most High is always the children of Israel. So when he made sacrifice, he would go in before the Most High with Israel on his heart. Y'all, that's symbolic. So that is talked about how the Ashanti tribe, they still have that. I'm gonna show y'all a picture of that. Not just that, he talks about the different migrations that the Ish people had to acknowledge in terms of migrating African Israelites into the land. There were 3 different airlifts just for the Beta Israel of Ethiopia. Amos 9:7 says, are you not as the Ethiopian unto me? We see in Operation Moses in 1984, Operation Sheba in 1985, and Operation Solomon in 1991 that they airlifted the Beta Israel. So you got the Beta Israel, you got the Ashanti tribe, you got the Yoruba people, that their origin is the Lost Tribes, the Igbo people, Olaudah Equiano, like I just showed you guys, him comparing the customs of the circumcision and all of these things, not eating pork, and a lot of the 8-day naming ceremony, all of that is Jewish or Judeo, right? Not just that. If y'all looking for another, so the Negro question is a great starter book, y'all. It goes into all of that history. It goes into our people and the curses of Deuteronomy 28. It's a great starter book. Also, in the truth about the black biblical Hebrew Israelites, the world's best kept secret. Y'all, it's so much literature on this stuff. This is also an easy read, you guys. It goes into how we already know our people have been migrating deeper into Africa throughout history. Northern Kingdom always made an affinity with Egypt. When you look at Christ, he ran to Africa, Egypt, to hide from Herod. Our people always went into that country. Jacob during the time of the famine went into Egypt. Joseph, all of this history, right? Moses was raised in Egypt. So our people migrated all the time into the African continent. Not just that, but in 70 CE of the Common Era, during the fall of the Roman, or the fall of the temple, when Rome conquered Judea and destroyed the temple under General Vespasian and his son Titus, they put an end to the Jewish state. The Bible documents how there would be a lot of his people scattered into West Africa. We see Josephus and the Great Roman War, pages 66 through 70. We see, family, in this book about the world's best kept secret, I'm gonna go to it. On page 21, it talks about in the Great Roman Jewish War, 66 through 70, on page 235, that millions of Jews fled into Africa. We see when the temple fell in 70 AD, that the ones that could escape went deeper into Africa. They followed Yeshua's example. Israel was known for blending in with the other Hamites, as we saw in the Zondervan Bible Compact Dictionary. We are dark race people that could blend in. So y'all, this is another good book, you guys. It's so much literature, and I already told you guys about the Moorish history. A lot of that Moorish history is Israelite history. I showed you guys in Light and Truth. In Light and Truth, the word Moor is the same as Negro, but it also shows the period of the Moors that ruled the earth, specifically Iberian Spain, before the Christian European North banished them in 1492 out of Spain, and they also went into Africa. So in the fall in 70 AD, you had Israelites going into Africa. In 1492, you had Sephardic Israelites going into Africa. You have all these different waves of Moorish, Berber, Negro, Sephardic Israelites going into the continent, right? There is so much history there. So now, family, I'm about to show y'all this oral tradition of us coming into the continent, some DNA breakdowns, and also some Harvard, some White House memorandum, a lot of that stuff. Let's check it out.
What's up, Zion Dynasty? I'm back, y'all. So as we already discussed, I showed y'all a lot of the literature that you guys, if you want to research deeper into this history, that validates and verifies that Bible prophecy and everything that the Most High Yah has said has come to pass to his people. We went from Deuteronomy 28, a prophecy thousands of years ago, where Moses said that we would go into slavery on slave cargo ships. We would have a yoke of iron around our neck. We would go as swift as the eagle flies, talking about America. A 1,000-year plus prophecy about what would happen to y'all's people. We can see the oral tradition of the so-called African tribes that we come from, the history, the DNA, all of this verifies that Bible, I'm telling y'all, is the infallible word of the Most High Yah. So now, family, first I'm going to show y'all the oral tradition of the majority of the tribes that we come from, y'all. If you do your DNA, you're going to run into the Yoruba. Your DNA might say Nigerian or West African. All of that means you're an Israelite. If you see all that information, those tribes have oral traditions that go back to Israel. I know it gets confusing because you're like, are we African? Are we Israel? When you trace the tribes, it's like going down a rabbit hole. The origin and the extra origin of that people get you to the, I guess you would say, the beginning of this people, right? So first you find out you're black, African American. You find out, well, I'm West African or Sub-Saharan. Oh, I'm Nigerian. Oh, I'm Igbo. Oh, the Igbo descend from Israel. So the further you dig into these tribes we come from, the final destination gets you back to us being the biblical descendants of the Israelites. And I'm going to show you examples and go into that DNA. So first, family, let's look at the oral tradition of the Yoruba people. Before I go into, I got PubMed up and the National Library of Medicine. Before we go into that part, I'm going to close out my 23andMe. We're going to look at the oral tradition of the Yoruba people a little bit. So now we see under the Iberian Jews of Yoruba nationality, we're going to read about this. The Bani Ephraim are the children of Ephraim from Nigeria, live among the Yoruba nationalities. Y'all check that out. Their oral tradition tells that the Bani Ephraim, now the Ephraimite people are descendants of Joseph, the 11th son of Jacob, and we're going to go through this thing. The oral tradition tells that the Bani Ephraim people come from Morocco after the Jews were banished from the Iberian Peninsula in 1492. This is that Jews and Moors of Spain history, where they were banished because the Christian North saw them keeping strange customs that had a lot of the Moriscos and a lot of those Israelites that practiced Christianity had them confused and had them turning back to TORAH. The Christians saw that as a threat, so they banished these Israelites out of Spain deeper into Africa. Now they speak a dialect of a mixture of Moroccan Arabic, Yoruba, and Aramaic. They are known by the Yoruba people as the Imo Yokwayim, or strange people. Now y'all, just want to show y'all a little bit of that. Now this is just a vlog. You can Google Yoruba, Ephraim, Yoruba, Israelites, and you're going to run into that people. You're going to run into this information. Now, is it verifiable that these Ephraimite people, these Sephardic Israelites that live with the Yoruba people, is it verifiable that they migrated from Spain, from Morocco, into West Africa? Now, if you look at the Jewish Virtual Library, now y'all, I know a lot of y'all have probably seen this. I'm just doing this for people that might not be aware of this history. The Jewish Virtual Library talks about this. It says Ephraim is the principal capital of Central Sud region, north central Morocco, which is situated in the Middle Atlas Mountains. So in North Africa and that Maghrebian region at the top of the continent, you have this Ephraim region. It is Morocco's winter summer premier resort area. It's a nice area up on the northern coast of the continent. And according to Judeo-African tradition, Ephraim is regarded as the first site of Jewish settlement in Morocco. So this is the Jewish Virtual Library talking about this Ephraim Jewish settlement in Africa. Morocco is North Africa, y'all. So now we just read about the Yoruba saying that they came from Morocco. The Moors ruled in Morocco and Spain during the Dark Ages, but they were forced deeper into Africa when the European North banished them. So we see that this Jewish settlement was the first in Morocco. Many legends have been created about this ancient community of Ephraim, whose first members are said to have arrived from Eretz Israel before the destruction of the first temple. So family, we talked about those that migrated in 1492. We talked about those that came to Africa in 70 AD when General Vespasian and his son Titus destroyed Jerusalem. We also see that even before the first temple, you had Israelites in Africa, in Morocco from Eretz Israel. You had African Israelites that had been there way back during the first temple. Now it says a Jewish kingdom was set up there in Morocco, which was governed by the Ephraim family, then named Ephrati. So we see this connection with the Moorish history, the Moors that claim Moroccan heritage, right? A lot of those Moroccan Moors were Israelites that set up a Jewish kingdom before Islam and was governed by the Ephraim family. Now we see that when Islam spread through Africa, that a lot of these Jews were made to convert to Islam, and this is why a lot of our forefathers practice Islam to this day, from a lot of that spread of Islam going through Africa. But originally there was an old Jewish kingdom set up in Africa by the Ephraim family, the Ephrati family, and Ephraim, where you're getting Afri, are the people of Afri, Africa, right? The Jews of this kingdom are said to have belonged to, y'all watch this, the tribe of Ephraim, one of the lost 10 tribes of Israel. Now, why you keep seeing Ephraim? I argue that the map has been turned upside down by white supremacy. What, JB? Y'all hear what I'm saying? When you look at Upper and Lower Egypt, Upper is at the bottom of our map and Lower is at the top. When you look at Nubia, Lower Nubia is on the top and Upper Nubia is on the bottom. Well, how does that make sense? The Bible says that this people, these Greco-Romans, that last beast, would seek to change times, locations, the geography of the maps. I argue the northern kingdom is actually Africa. That region of North Morocco, a lot of that, our Israelite forefathers lived in that region. A lot of northern kingdom was in that region. They knew to migrate there. We saw this with Derek Lang when he talks about the origin of the Yoruba. We see this with Gad's son Eri, with the founder of the Igbo people, also have that same oral tradition of migrating into Africa. So Africa would have been the northern kingdom hotspot. This is how we know the name Africa goes back to the Ephraim, or the Ephrati, northern kingdom of Israel. This is why Ephraim, you keep seeing the tribe of Ephraim, because Ephraim was the leading tribe of the northern kingdom, the royal house, if you will. So indeed, in the modern era of the Ephraim family, they administered the affairs of the community of Ephraim. We see it was a vibrant location in Morocco and Africa where this Jewish kingdom existed, and our people ruled we were banished from that region. This whole Moroccan Jewish community coincides with the Yoruba's oral tradition. Y'all give back to the thing that gave you life, because in discovering your ancestors, you find yourself. Now, if we look at the DavidicDynasty.org, it talks about the Sephardic family. This goes into the Moors. The Moors, we looked at J.A. Rogers, that talks about these Sephardic Moorish families that were Israelites. Now, let's read this. The second family, the Sephardic, is the Al-Dahudi, the David family in Arabic, who are descended from the children of the last murdered Rosh Hagolah, which were the exilarchs that ruled in captivity. While our people were under Babylon, Assyria, what have you, we had a royal family of exilarch rulers that ruled our people, kept our people organized while we were in captivity, whose children in the generation of Rabbi Yehuda HaLevi fled to safety in Spain. Now we see that this David family was in Spain, but we're also going to see that they were in Morocco. Spain is connected directly to Morocco by the Gibraltar Strait. That entire region were Negro Israelites. Rabbi Abraham ben David, the chronicler of the 12th century, mentions the fact in his work Sefer HaKabbalah. As it seems, several other of these royal Sephardic families later branched out from the David family, such as the Dan Yayas. When you see the Nasi or the Yaya Negro, they changed their last name to Negro, because this goes back to Don Yaya Negro when he was given the land of the Moors. That's a lot of that Moorish history. But the Don Yayas, the Abarbanels, also never ceased to trace their origin to King David. Y'all watch this. Those related to the David family, we find after the expulsion of the Jews from Spain, we find them in Morocco. So this coincides with the Yoruba oral tradition that first they were in Spain, they were banished to Morocco, and later migrated deeper into the Gold Coast of West Africa. Most of our people come from these Nigerian people. The major groups of the Nigeria, the Yoruba, the Igbo, and the Hausa, all have oral traditions going back to Israel. The majority of our people go to the Yoruba or the Igbo. That's why I'm highlighting the Yoruba, right? So we see, family, that we find that David family in Morocco. We find that Sephardic royal family in Morocco, and I just showed you guys that through the DavidicDynasty.org. So now we got the oral tradition. That oral tradition is verified by Cambridge. Ulysses Santa Maria also talks about in southern Nigeria, the natives called black Jews the strange people, or the Imo Yokwayim. Now, so you had Hamitic natives that knew about these Israelites that lived in Nigeria. Not just that, but you also had other Israelites that called them strange because some of our people were practicing Islam, right? So this is verified by Cambridge, the Cambridge University Press, about the B'nai Ephraim, or the Imo Yokwayim, right? They're called B'nai Ephraim, the sons of Ephraim. So y'all, it's fact on top of fact. I'm gonna show you guys also that Jewish encyclopedia clip that also says this exact same information. Now let's go into the scientific side of it. Now, if you guys did your DNA, now this is 23andMe. I'm gonna show you guys my results where it goes into these things. If you do like your paternal test, like I told y'all, the paternal lineage establishes one's lineage or one's ancestry. You are who your father is, right? You trace your father's lineage by doing a paternal test. And the majority of you all, 95%, are going to find E1B1A. Now, 23andMe changed their nomenclature, so you might see something like EZ16052 or some madness. This is basically saying you go back to haplogroup E, or you go back to the slave cargo ships, which we know through prophecy are Israelites that went through those curses. Now, when they give you a strange nomenclature, I'm going to show you guys on isogg.org that you can search a lot of these. So a lot of y'all been messaging me about what is CTS 1000 and what is this and what is that. You can search these nomenclatures in isogg.org, or you can Google search isogg haplogroup E or something like that, and you should be able to control find, right, your nomenclature that 23andMe gives you. Now I'm searching EZ16052, and as you can see, that nomenclature is E1B1A. It's a descendant of E1B1A. All of this extra stuff means you're just a descendant, a mutation of E1B1A. That's the root, because if you scroll up, you'll see, family, that E1B1A is that foundation. Every time they add another letter, that's them having children over time, but your foundation is the same. DNA even tells the same story. You are who your forefathers are. You build on the foundation of those that came before you. This is why you see E1B1A add all these nomenclatures until they kind of create a new group over time. But our people are descended from the root foundation, E1B1, specifically E1B1A. And I'm going to show you guys through Harvard and other sources and other studies that they've done, that they found E1B1 and E1B1A, the descendant of that, in ancient Israel. So let me pull that up for a sec. So family, now in the history of African gene flow, this is a study on the National Library of Medicine, PubMed. It goes into the African flow of genes into Europe, into the Levantine and the Jewish people. So what this study goes into, y'all, if y'all want to link to this, I can drop that in the description. It goes into how the African people dwelt in these areas, right? Mainly through antiquity. They inhabited these regions, and later they were kicked out of these regions through persecution and a lot of that stuff. But there is a strong African presence even to this day that still is found in the Levantine region, the Middle East, so-called Northeast Africa. You find a lot of the Natufian E1B1 and E1B1A in these regions as remnants to this day. Let me show you guys another study. I'm gonna go deeper. Now, in this Harvard study, Harvard Medical School, in 2011, population genetics reveals shared ancestries. DNA links modern Europeans, Middle Easterners to sub-Saharan Africans. What does this mean? That the oldest remnants of the Middle East and those regions, they find bones of sub-Saharan Negroes, which leads the scientists to suggest that even though it's not present a lot now, that the origin of these modern people is linked to these sub-Saharan Africans. What does that mean, JB? That before they got there were Negro people, sub-Saharan, that's who we are, so-called West African sub-Saharan Negroes. They find our bones in the land of Israel, which predates the modern people. So that would suggest either they descend from us or they ain't the original people in the land. Now, a lot of these Middle Easterners will say, well, yeah, we know that y'all are our ancestors. We know that the original Israelites were black and that those bones are the oldest remains, but a lot of them are not linked. A lot of them are not linked to that people. We just find DNA links of the ancient people linking us to the land of Israel. Now, I'm going to show you guys some of the tables that's used in this Harvard study that go into deeper detail. Now, in this table, 6.1, we see some of the different genetic haplogroups. When you say haplogroups, that's just a father's lineage or a mother's lineage that they have found in various regions. They documented. So in Armenia, they found L1, which I told you guys, L1, L2, L3, also L0 are linked to Israelite queens. This is the mother's line of Israelite women, right? But not just that, if you scroll down to Israel underscore Natufia, Natufia is the name for ancient Israel before the 1948. Now, the Harvard study already lets you know that before the 1948, we have DNA evidence of ancient sub-Saharan Negro remains. That means that the Israelites there today, if they are legitimate Israelites, they are going to be linked to these sub-Saharan Negro remains that predate the 1948 people. That means before the so-called white Jewish phenomena, there were black Negro remains, ancient black Israelites. And let's look at those haplogroups. E1B1B. We see that linked to ancient Israel or ancient Natufia. E1B1, including E1B1A and E1B1B linked to Israel. E1B1B, Israel. CT, a lot of y'all have CTS 100 and a lot of that, these are linked to Israel. So any of these haplogroup E or EP2 subgroups have been linked through genetic studies or archaeological remains. They found these bones with this DNA in Israel. And this is a Harvard study. They have found your DNA, Zion, in the land of Israel. Because like I showed you guys with my own personal DNA, like I showed you guys with my DNA, the root is E1B1A1. That's the foundation. This is my personal EZ16052 from 23andMe. Y'all see that EZ16052? Now you see E, because E is just that major haplogroup. The dash is the rest of the nomenclature. Z16052. And you see that that is E1B1A. So when you go back to that Harvard study, you see that E1B1A1 has been linked to ancient Israel or ancient Netuvia. Now, this entire E1B1 has been referred to as EP2. If you just Google search EP2, Wikipedia will give you a basic understanding. It won't go too deep, but enough so you can understand that E1B1 is said to be EP2. If you guys research EP2, the majority of the continent of Africa today is linked to EP2. All right. And it says this paternal clade had an ancient presence in the Middle East. So y'all understand, now even on this map, when you highlight the Middle East, it shows Africa connected to it, because the scholars know that the Middle East, quote unquote, is Northeast Africa, and that a lot of our DNA, E1B1 and E1B1A, was found through Harvard and a lot of various sources to be in that land. Ancient Israel had Negro E1B1A DNA in it. The same DNA y'all are going to find if you do your test, they have found in the Middle East. And they have found that it had an ancient presence. That means before the white people got there, our Negro black DNA, E1B1A, was found in the land of Israel. If you Google Netuvia, that we saw in that study breakdown, that study chart, Netuvia, Israel _ Netuvia, Netuvia is ancient Israel. Shout out to any of our Natufians out there that know about the Natufian culture. Also, the Nubian people also are linked to this same kind of culture, but that's a whole nother study. So the Natufian culture goes into the culture of the Levant region. When you see Netuvia or the Levant on this map, it shows you it's the Middle East, or that so-called Middle East area, right? So family, now I done showed y'all that E1B1A and the DNA that you're gonna find when you do your test is linked to the land of Israel in ancient times, not modern times, because you find a lot of European DNA today because they've been living in that land. Now, also, I'm going to show you guys GEDmatch. GEDmatch does a great job at linking our DNA to various people that live today and that lived in ancient times. If you do any of the MDLP or GEDmatch, now if y'all want me to do a deeper explanation on how to use GEDmatch, y'all just comment that down below. But if you do GEDmatch and use some of their ancestry matching projects, this is MDLP World 22. You're gonna see, if they take your chromosome, that your closest relative is the Limba people. Y'all check out that Limba Jews video we did. My distance is 24. The lower it is, the better. I've seen some of y'all with 15, with 12, with 10, with 9. That just shows how close you are to the people. The lower the distance, the more close. But what I want you guys to see is that if y'all do this, Limba is the top people that we match with. We are linked to the Limba, which we know, and the scholars know about the Limba Jews. The Limba Jews of South Africa, right? They are well documented. Their culture that they keep, their 8-day ceremony, they don't mix meat with milk. They don't eat pork. They keep the Sabbath. The Limba is the closest relative to so-called African Americans. You also see Bantu, which we know those sub-Saharan Negroes are Israelites. The Pygmies, the Mandinka, sub-Saharan, I already mentioned that. Yoruba, right? Now, y'all, I did my personal African ancestry that linked my father's lineage to the beginning, and it showed as the Yoruba people, which we know are linked to the Israelites via the Sephardics that migrated from Morocco. I know this is a lot, y'all. Y'all replay this video, y'all take notes, and y'all ask questions in the comment. The Ethiopians, right? Because we already know Ethiopia has a lot of different Jewish populations. Like you see the Ethiopian Jews, all this shows up when they test our DNA with other groups on the world. You see these matches. Not just that, but if you do Ethiohelix and you go down to the mixed mode session, we see the Brong, the Igbo, the Yoruba, a lot of those that we expect, West African and sub-Saharan Negroes. But the secondary population in our chromosome is North Africa, Morocco's, Algeria, Morocco, Libya. Why? Now, we looked at the Yoruba oral tradition where they said they came from Morocco. And this was verified by Cambridge, that they migrated from Morocco after they were banished from Spain. That's their oral tradition. Cambridge talks about it. The Jewish Encyclopedia, the Jewish Virtual Library talks about those Moroccan Jews. That's where our people were when we were kicked out of Spain. We also talked about the David family being in Morocco. So when you do your GED match and you see Morocco, that's consistent. A lot of scholars say we're just West African or Sub-Saharan because they're trying to put Israel in a box, when the entirety of that continent, historically, our people have been in those regions, right? All the way up to Spain and all the way down to South Africa, all the way up to Northeast Africa, the Middle East, they find our DNA, right? Also in GED match, you will see under the DODCAD project, right? When you go down to the bottom and look at the secondary populations, we're going to see the Bantu in the primary, of course, because that's the majority of our haplogroup, of us being those Israelites that came when the temple fell. But the secondary population will show you the ancient remains that are still in our DNA, going back to the Morocco Jews. Look at this in the DNA. Morocco Jews, North African Jews. I've seen people with Libyan Jews, North African Jews. I've seen some people with Algerian Jews. You're going to see this in your DNA. The DNA has the remnants of our identity. We don't trust it as a primary source because this can be altered at any moment. But we do see as it stands that we can use it as a secondary tool to prove our connection with ancient Israel. If you do your My True Ancestry, now you see my closest ancient is the Yoruba. I already been talking about the Yoruba throughout the whole video, going back to the B'nai Ephraim and having Morocco elements, right? And that they lived in Spain before they were banished, went to Morocco, and went to West Africa. Now that's See My True Ancestry, which tests my DNA on various populations throughout different time periods, right? It shows the Yoruba. It also shows Al-Andalus and the Moors. I told y'all that these Yoruba were Moors that ruled the Dark Ages, that ruled in Iberian Spain. Is this verified? If you click Al-Andalus, it shows you Spain, that the Moors used to rule this region before they were kicked out. Doesn't that sound familiar? That's the same oral tradition. The B'nai Ephraim from Nigeria live among the Yoruba. Their oral tradition says the B'nai Ephraim came from Morocco after the Jews were banished from the Iberian Peninsula. When you go back to this, it says that Al-Andalus is known as Muslim Iberia. All of these puzzle pieces come together, family. So we see Muslim Iberia, we see Yoruba, then we look at their oral tradition. It says Morocco. It says that they were banished from Iberia, right? And that they speak Moroccan Arabic, Yoruba, and Aramaic. They're known as the strange people. We see this in the Cambridge source by Ulysses Santa Maria about these strange Ephraimite people that live among the Yoruba. Now, to clarify that, family, I know a lot of y'all were like, well, are all the Yoruba Israelites or just a few? The entire founding of the Yoruba people goes back to the fall of the Assyrian kingdom and that migration under Oduduwa into present-day Nigeria. The B'nai Ephraim are a different migration of this people back into their greater family. It goes into this on this source. Now let's read it. It says this set of Moorish refugees are not to be confused with more ancient Hebrew and Canaanite tribes that have been living in Nigeria and other African countries for thousands of years. This is just one migration that I'm able to prove our connection as so-called African Americans. But there have been so many migrations of Israelites into these regions, and the foundation of Nigeria and these Niger people goes back to Israel. We see the early church in Acts 13 verse 1 called Niger, right? Now, so I showed you guys that element, the My True Ancestry, the GED match, the E1B1A that you're going to find your DNA going back to. All of this is verified by so many other sources, family. Now, we're going to look at some deeper credibility linking our people back to these Jews. Now, I'm going to show you guys the African Names Database. Now, if you search the slavevoyages.com, you should be able to pull this database up. Y'all let me know if you're having problems with it. But if you Google or search African name and you put Yah, any African name of the Africans that came to the Americas with Yah in their name, you see that it is 200 rows of these Africans that had Yah in their name. When you look at the origin of where they come from, we see Igbo. Now I'm gonna show y'all a map that talks about these various different Israelite groups in the continent of Africa. If you see Igbo right here on the Slave Voyages database, this is the Igbo people. We also see them referred as the Hebo. This is Hebrew. This is where we get the word Hebrew from. Ivrit. This is what the Igbo people were called from the beginning. So a lot of these slaves that had Yah in their name were Igbo, which we see is one of the major tribes that African Americans came from. I'm telling y'all, the tribes that we came from, those African tribes, have so much history linking them back to the ancient Israelites, y'all. It is crazy. Linking them back to the Sephardic Israelites, the Moorish Israelites, the Negro Israelites. There were so many different migrations into the continent. Africa is the hub for the children of Israel. I'm trying to tell y'all. So now if we look at, now let's just look at one slave, for example, and see if we can link the slaves in America to this history. Now I took it from the big scale, the African tribes. Now we're about to take it to us being in America. Now Matthew de Sousa, we see, was an indentured servant and was the only black person to serve in the Colonial Maryland legislature. As such, he is the first African American to sit in any legislative body in what will become the United States. So y'all, this is African American history, where we see Matthew de Sousa was the only black person to serve in the Maryland legislature. Now let's dig deeper into Matthew de Sousa. Now, as one of the 9 indentured servants working for Father Andrew White, a Catholic priest, de Sousa arrived in St. Mary's City, St. Clements Island, Maryland in 1634. So we see this African person. Now right here we see de Sousa was probably mixed. Now they say probably mixed with African and European or Portuguese. He was deemed mulatto. Now, so we see Matthew de Sousa, this African American that was the first to sit on the Maryland legislature, right? And they just say he was the first black or the first African American. Let's see another source that talks about Matthew de Sousa. Okay, so if we go to this source, and I hope you guys can see this, right? Now let me search his name, let me find out. Let's read about Matthew de Sousa on this source. It says, Portuguese Jews, many Sephardic Jews from Portugal fled persecution and came to the colonies. This talking about America in that 1600 time period. Now we just talked about Matthew de Sousa being the first black to serve on the Maryland legislature. Matthew de Sousa was one such Jew who arrived in Maryland in 1634. Wait a second. We just read that Matthew de Sousa was the first African American to sit in any legislative body in the United States. Wait, it calls him an African American. But here it says he was a Jew. I'm telling y'all, these nations know who we are. We can take the history of the Yoruba. We can take the history of the Igbo people. We can take and we can see that this is verified in the Jewish Virtual Library. We can see this on Davidic Dynasty. We can see our E1B DNA, E1B1A DNA found on the Harvard studies, right? Linking it back to ancient Netufia. We found all of that. But also when you link the modern slaves, those African Americans so-called of today, you look at the slave database, the slave names database, and you see we come from Igbo people. But here, when it says he was the first African American, you would never suspect that he was a Jew. Now this is in 1634, family, until you go to another source that says in 1634, Matthew de Sousa was one such Jew that fled persecution and arrived in Maryland, right? So you had just so many different Israelites coming so many different ways into Africa and being scattered throughout the earth, right? We think that just our people came to the Americas in chains. There were some of the wealthy Sephardic Israelites that came over to the Americas to flee persecution and had boats and had all kinds of money to come to be a part of the colonies. That stuff gets deep, y'all. But not just that. I'm going to show y'all another source. We're going to pull out all these receipts on this one. In the White House Memorandum. Now, I told y'all about the Igbo. We talked about Olaudah Equiano, how he's the first autobiography of a black person, and he links the customs of the Igbos to the Israelites. Not just that, but on that slave database, we see that these slaves with Yah in their name are linked to the Igbo. Now, in the White House Memorandum, this was written to President Nixon by Henry A. Kissinger, a European Jew. Now, I'm going to show you all that when you look at this memorandum, Henry Kissinger calls the Igbos, he said the Igbos are the wandering Jews of Africa, gifted, aggressive, westernized, at best envied and resented. Wait a second, JB. He says the Igbos are the wandering Jews of West Africa. These West African tribes that we come from, family, in Nigeria, among the Igbo, among the Yoruba, are linked to Israel, right? Not just that. Let's look at some of the slaves that were actually over here, right? If you look at the Library of Congress, family, in the Houston Daily Post, I'm gonna try to let you guys see this. It talks about a Negro who could read and write Hebrew. Now it says he is deaf and dumb and comes from an African town in Hartford, Connecticut, September 19. A young African Negro has been in this city for the last few days who claims to be a Hebrew. He is deaf and dumb and is as black as an ace of spades. He carries a pad of paper with him and answers all questions by writing them in Hebrew and Laotian Kadesh, which is the ancient old Israelite language, right? What excites the most wonder is that he writes Laotian Kadesh very fast. He knows this. He came to the Americas with this culture, with this heritage. It is the language of the books of Moses, the ancient Torah. And this is the Library of Congress. So we got the Library of Congress talking about slaves over in the Americas that could write, speak Hebrew, right? We also saw how Matthew de Sousa was another African American that different sources call him the Jew that arrived in Maryland in 1634. We looked at the slave database that talks about a lot of these Igbo slaves that had Yah in their names, that had that culture when they came over. I already mentioned the Yoruba, their oral tradition verified by Cambridge. So y'all, we're going to go deeper. Now, if you look at Zephaniah, the book of Zephaniah, in chapter 3, verse 10, it says, "From beyond the rivers of Ethiopia, my suppliants, even the daughter of my dispersed, shall bring mine offering." I'm going to put an image up, family. And the word beyond in the Hebrew used in this scripture is Eber, which means to cross or on the opposite side. So the scripture says, "From beyond the rivers of Ethiopia, my suppliants, even the daughter of my dispersed." So from beyond the river of Ethiopia, across the river of Ethiopia, across the river of Ethiopia are my suppliants, are the descendants of my dispersed people. If you look at a map, if you go across or beyond the river of Ethiopia, this is West Africa. Those West African tribes, the Bible is prophesying, those West African tribes would actually be the descendants of the Israelites. And we see this among the Yoruba, we see this among the Igbo, we see this among even the slaves that were on this side of the Americas during the transatlantic and that period in history, y'all. So with that, family, I'm going to take you guys back to the rest of the lesson. As you guys see, there is so much history, so much evidence that links our people, our bones, our remains to the land of Israel, and that the oral tradition of our people is true, y'all. Everything our people said about us coming from Israel and migrating from Spain when the Jews were kicked out of Spain, all of that has been verified by a number of sources. So with that, family, let's go back to the rest of the segment. All praises to the Most High Yah.
All praises be to the Most High Yah. I'm trying to tell y'all, everything that Satan has tried to do, the nations have conspired. The nations have conspired, family, to hide this history, to wipe Israel out of remembrance. We see this in Psalms 83, that this was prophesied, that the nations would be confederate to hide this history. These so-called West African tribes fulfilled Zephaniah chapter 3 verse 10, that beyond the rivers of Ethiopia, on the opposite side of those rivers, that's West Africa, that would be the place where the Most High's dispersed children would reside. We see this confirmed with the Yoruba, with the Igbo, with the Ashanti, with the Limba, with all of these various Bantu sub-Saharan tribes that we come from, that their oral tradition matches Bible prophecy. Y'all, the Bible is a history book. The Bible is prophetic. The Bible speaks a thing in advance and then watches its slow walk come to pass. Y'all have to understand. And the scholars have this information. I showed y'all the Harvard DNA study that places our paternal and maternal DNA in ancient Israel known as Netufia. Netufia is that ancient term for Israel. So we saw the Harvard study that proved that. I showed you guys the White House memorandum again, in case y'all missed that last video. The White House memorandum where Henry Kissinger is talking to President Nixon about the Igbos being the wandering Jews. I showed you guys. Ola Uda Equiano, that he was an Igbo. And this is the first autobiography by a black person, and he talks about the Igbos' customs being linked to Israel. I showed y'all the slave voyages database, that the Igbos, they had Yah in their name. The Igbos are one of the largest groups that we come from. If you do your DNA, you're gonna see Igbo relations in your DNA, right? I see it in mine. I'm closely linked to the Yoruba, but the Yoruba and the Igbo are like 99% relatives. They're the same people, basically, y'all. So we see the Igbo, they claim to be the descendants of Eri, the 8th son of Gad, that migrated when the fall of the Assyrian Empire into Nigeria, along with the Yorubas that in Derek Lang's anthropological work also migrated during that same time period. So we see the Yoruba, we see the Igbo. Y'all check out that Limba tribe video where the European Jewish missionary went among the Limba and saw their oral tradition that it goes back to Israel. Y'all, I'm showing y'all that the tribes that all of us so-called blacks in America, if you descend from the transatlantic slave period, that is, if your father's 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 father, i.e. E1B1A, goes back to a slave ship, you are an Israelite. Those tribes that they took our people from are Israelite tribes. The Yoruba, the Igbo, the Ashanti, the Limba, all these West African Bantus, the Fang people, a lot of those Maghrebian, Moroccan, Sephardic Jews that migrated, those that migrated when the temple fell in 70 AD, those that migrated during the first temple era into Spain, ancient Iberia. I showed y'all Acts 29 by Paul that he went to ancient Iberia because he knew that Israelites had been dispersed in that region. So y'all, these tribes we come from are without a doubt descendants from the ancient Israelites. There are so many scholars. I showed you the Harvard work by Tudor Parfit that talks about these black Jews. Not just that, I showed you the Cambridge work by Tudor Parfit and Edith Bruder that also talks about these black Jews. I showed y'all the Oxford work by Edith Bruder that talks about, all of these are Ivy League sources. All of this stuff is verifiable. The Jewish Encyclopedia, the Jewish Virtual Library. Y'all, there is more evidence to prove that the descendants of the transatlantic, the diaspora of our people, are Israelites than any other ethnicity. Now, also, when you go into that Israelite history, you're going to run into the history of the Moors. Moor just meant Negro, but their ethnicity were Israelites. Some of them practiced Islam, some of them practiced Torah. That's why they say the Moors and the Jews, because not all the Moors practiced Torah. You had a lot of them that were Islamic. But ethnically speaking, the Moors are Israelites of North Africa, of Africa, Central Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa, that ruled the earth, ruled Spain, ruled Europe, right, during the Dark Ages. All of these tribes we come from, family, are Israelites, which proves the power of a prophecy in that book. Y'all, I'm telling y'all, that Bible is the most powerful book that remains in the earth today. The prophecies and the claims that the scripture prophesies, there is no other book that can speak a thing so far in advance, and our people go into slavery on slave cargo ships, Deuteronomy 28:68, our people be scattered to the four corners of the earth. When you look at Deuteronomy 28:64, our people having a yoke of iron around our neck in Deuteronomy 28, a nation with the symbol of an eagle coming to take us to a nation we knew not. I'm telling y'all, all of these prophecies are verified by the science, by the Harvard, by the DNA, that Harvard DNA study, the White House memorandum. That means President Nixon knew about us being linked to the Igbos, or at least knew the Igbos were Israelites. But they had the slave records, they had the slave voyages database, so they knew we were linked to the Igbos and the Yoruba and the Limba. All of these tribes of who are linked to the children of Israel. I'm trying to make sure I got enough for y'all. Y'all write these books down. There's so many I got around me just looking down right now. But all of this stuff can be verified, family. If y'all can check out some of those books, do it, write this stuff down, print out your DNA. If y'all have any questions or comments on how to interpret your DNA, basically, E1B1A, if you get haplogroup E on a paternal test, you're an Israelite. If you get haplogroup L, you're an Israelite. That's on your mother's side, right? All that group does is trace you back to a common ancestor through either your father's line or your mother's line. When you see E1B1, E1B1A, this means your lineage goes back to Negro males taken on the transatlantic ships that come from West African tribes that come from Israel. It's a long history. Our history is so rich, y'all, of us going from Israel thousands of years ago into Africa a couple hundred years ago and ending up in the Americas, all to fulfill Bible prophecy when we got kicked out the land because of our disobedience. So with that, family, I'm gonna leave y'all with those sources. If y'all have any other comments, concerns, y'all reach out to your boy. And I love y'all with the love of the Messiah. Peace, love, blessings, and Israelite power to all the kings and queens of Zion, the royalty of this earth, the children of the Most High. I love you all. Y'all be blessed. Shalom. All praises.